Hi, my name is Abdul Shakur and welcome to the Private Equity Podcast. Today I am excited to have an amazing guest called Dave Seymour. Just a bit of background about Dave Seymour. He was a 16-year veteran in the fire service, moved from London to the United Is a TV star on Flippin Boston. He's also featured on CBC, CBS, ABC, CNBC, and Fox News. Can't even get that into my mouth. It's a mouthful, isn't it? He went from advising institutions to helping investors do their first deal. And this is one of the things I love about this guy. He's making investments accessible, and that's right down my street and what we do at Shakur Investments. Thank you for joining me, and thank you for doing this. Oh, by the way, he's also got a blue tick on Twitter. Don't know how much that is worth these days, but yeah, he's got a blue tick on Twitter.
Well, I don't know what that blue tick on Twitter is. When we were doing the TV show, the reality TV show, it's like all these people came out of the woodwork. Everybody wanted to authenticate my account. So right now, I got a blue tick. Donald Trump had a blue tick, but he got booted off of Twitter. So I'm still here. You know what I'm saying? I'm still in the game, Abdul. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. So the thing that I really, when I read your bio, when I looked into your social media, one of the things I saw was you moved from London to the United States. Now, where did that come from? Because there's very few people that I hear about that actually end up making that jump. It's nice to go there for a holiday from time to time, but you made this whole transition. Talk me about the thought process behind that.
You know what? I would love to tell you there was a thought process behind it. I'd love for your listeners and you to realize I'm the smartest guy walking the face of the earth. I'm not. I was in college in London. I grew up in Andover in Hampshire. We were born in London, down to Andover in Hampshire, Basingstoke, Winchester, down that way. I went back to London to go to college, university, I guess is the equivalent. And there I met my first wife of three, who was an American. And I was tending bar at the Greenwich Theatre in London, right outside the Cutty Sark. There's a little wine bar downstairs of the theatre, and I'm working in there, and she was working in there. We're dating. Her visa ran out. I'm 20 years old, Abdul, and I'm like, I think I like her a lot. You know what I'll do? I'm going to emigrate, get married, and back then my plan was to join the United States Air Force, which my father wasn't particularly keen on for his 20-year-old boy to just up and move. But, I don't do things on a small scale. I kind of do them on a big scale. And that was how I ended up in the States. I was following my girlfriend, who I married. And so the journey began, brother.
Making those big jumps, like I find, coming from the background, you grew up in a council estate. I grew up in a deprived community. People don't make these jumps. Was there something that you kind of picked up from childhood? Was there something that was in you that gave you that ability to do that? Because it's a scary thing to do.
Yeah,
so,
that's a great question.
Was there something in your childhood that kind of gave you the confidence to be more bold and more brave when it comes to making decisions?
Yeah, look, man, I made a commitment over 32 years ago to be authentic and true, right? And, both of us growing up in the English culture, going down to Rub-a-Dub-Dub on a Sunday afternoon, drinking with the boys, shooting pool, chasing the girls, right? Man's man, all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. I grew up in a strong, alcohol environment, and I was drinking. I was drinking like a lunatic back then. I wasn't a squared away individual. I'm a big fan of Jay Shetty, and Jay Shetty personal development, right? And Jay Shetty used to talk about how he was always chasing the girls and the coke and the dreams and the booze and all of that stuff. And it's like one day he had that realization, when he heard a monk speak. And for me, I was chasing something. I mean, I didn't make that big decision to move from one side of the world to the other. It wasn't made under, adult, consequences. It just seemed like a good idea, and I did it. But what happened was that when I came to the States, in America, and this is never a put down on my culture or my background, right? But it's, I believe, from my experience, to move through the economic classes, and I'll just phrase it that way, right? To move through trading time for money and then learning how to have money work for me instead of me work for money. that journey in America, I believe, was smoother than it could or would have been back home for me. You know, growing up on the council estate, just give us a football, let us go down the park and knock a ball around with some mates. I always knew I was going to end up on the industrial estate. I wasn't destined for higher education and architecture and law school and all of those things. It wasn't in my cards to do that. So, you know, how did I make that big journey? I think God is good. You know what I mean? He kind of tapped me on the shoulder and said, here you go, son. I'm going to give you another path. Let's see what you can do with this. You're either going to screw it up or you're going to make something out of it. And the first year I was in America, Abdul, I got 10 W-2s. And in the States, you get a W-2, which is, you know, your tax exposure for the year as an employee, right? It's called a W-2. Not a WD-40, that's different, right? A W-2. I had 10 of them in the first year. And I'm like, I said to my first wife, Kristen, I said, what are these? What's this W-2? Did we like frame them and put them on the wall as like trophies? She's no, you muppet. She's like, that means you're unemployable. It means you can't keep a job. And wow. I figured out, you know, as my journey went on, I figured out that I was never a good employee. So those big decisions, quit a job, start another job, try something else, do this, do that, try some sales, try some construction. Like I was always trying something else. And I was never content, right? I was never at peace with myself. Like I always knew deep down inside that there was a different journey. Not bigger, not better, right? Because that's them passing judgment on others. My journey was just different. And I didn't know what it was. I was working construction, building. I was in the building trades on my days off from the fire department. I landed a great job as a firefighter just north of Boston. And I freaking loved it. I mean, I really loved it. I loved the adrenaline. I loved the camaraderie. I loved all the flippers and the floppers and the wackos and the weirdos, the overdoses, the gang bangers. I mean, I loved it all. I loved it. I loved that chaos. And it's the truth, right? But on my days off, I'm working construction, building. I'm in the building trades with other firemen. And we're doing additions on houses and we're putting nice outside patio decks in and stuff like that. And I remember it was free. It gets really cold here in Boston. I mean, the hairs up your nose crackle when it gets that cold, right? When you're breathing in. And I'm working a construction site in the freezing cold. My hands are numb. My nose is numb. My ears are burning. My toes are like solid. I'm like, this is miserable. And a car pulled up. And there were 3 real estate investors in this car. I'll never forget it. 2 ladies, and they were gorgeous. They were mint, well-dressed, fur coat, one of them, like some wrap around her neck. And the dude was wearing, you know, like Uggs for men boots. And he's wearing drain pipe trousers. He's got a long cashmere coat on. And they're driving a Mercedes or a BMW or something. And I said to one of the mates on the job, I'm like, who are these people? He's like, these are the owners. They're flipping this house. They bought it for whatever. They're going to put money into it, and they're going to make money on it. And I'm like, okay. So I talked to them, and I realized something. They weren't that smart. They weren't that freaking smart. And I'm like, I'm doing something wrong. And that was one of those moments in my life where I said, hold on a minute. If I know how to build them, maybe I know how to invest in them. And the journey kind of began from there. So, you know, big decisions. I think opportunity, you know, comes at people, and it's whether you recognize the opportunity or not is what's important, right? Because opportunity will go in one or two directions, towards you or away from you, all depending on what you do in that moment, right? A moment of clarity. So that's how I started.
There's something that you said right there which really clicked with me. You know, they were not smart.
Yeah, and I don't mean that to be mean, right?
It's not in a mean way, but I do feel that there's a lot of people making a lot of money in this world who aren't as smart, who don't have this the drive, the motivation, the strategicness, the trust in all these sort of characteristics that make people successful. There's a lot of people out there who are making money who don't have that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, and I can 100% relate to that at our levels. So, when did you do your first deal then? Like, how did the first deal come about?
Yeah.
Talk me through.
So, I'm working in the building trades on my days off from the fire department. I
Yeah.
was working 120 hours a week,
Wow.
42 at the firehouse, rest of my days off in construction in the building trades, and then night at weekends I was retail security. Right, I was like pot roast police, we call it over here, because all I was doing was trading time for money. Right, I'm trying to make ends meet. I'm in my second marriage. I own a house. I got an 8-year-old kid, and this is in 2006 and 7. And we know what happened globally in 2008, 9, 10. And yes, America was responsible for it. They started it. We own it, right? We did it. Lying, cheating scumbags that we are, right? Just it was a tough time. But I was losing everything. I was losing my house. It was going into a foreclosure crisis. My second marriage was going down the toilet. I couldn't be a father to my son. I was just going through my own demons. And I heard a commercial on the radio, and it was Teach Me Foreclosure, a free 1.5 hour seminar coming to your neck of the woods is basically what it was. And it was the Whitney organization. Now, I know Russ Whitney took his real estate educating platform over to England, so some of your listeners might know who Russ Whitney was. But he was the OG. He was the original gangster of real estate investing training and seminars. I know you have a bunch of different companies in the UK now. You've got property investors, and I've met some of those guys along the way. But I was a student. I went in, and they started to teach me things that were new. They started to reposition some of my thought processes that I had carried my whole life. They started saying to me that money in the bank is a loser's bet. There is good debt and there is bad debt. They said that, trading time for money will always have a ceiling on it, because you can run out of time, but if you learn how to have money work for you, it's infinite. And I'm like, and I was ready, man. I was a vessel. So I started learning the fundamentals of real estate investing in the single family business. Now, I don't know if it applies in the UK, but in the States, we can do a transaction in real estate called a wholesale. And basically what that means is, not buying on bulk wholesale like that, but basically what that means is I can get an accepted offer between a buyer and a seller and put myself in the middle of that transaction. So I have an equitable interest in the purchase and sales agreement. And if I put it under contract for maybe $200,000 for a single family house, I can sell that contract to a cash buyer for $220,000, right? As long as I stay in the deal and make sure that that buyer and seller execute on that transaction. So it's putting myself in the middle. And that was my first deal. And it was $5,000. It was in 2008 as the market's tanking. Everything was a bank-owned asset, foreclosure. I found a realtor who would let me kind of work with him. And I think it was 110 for this bank-owned piece of real estate. And I sold it to another investor for 117, 2,000 in legal fees and closing costs. And I walked out of this attorney's office, Abdul. It was a rainy night in Boston. It was cold and damp. It was like 5:30, October, November. And I come out of this office and I've got a check in my hand for $5,000. And I'm like, oh my God. And I knew it was real because it came from an attorney's office, right? A lawyer, a person with legal credentials gave me a check for $5,000. And I'm waiting for the big black sedans to come in and lock me up. FBI, CIA, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry. Because I looked at that moment, Abdul, and I said to myself, what had I done in my life prior to that moment to create $5,000 of income? What had I done? I'd gone into a burning structure. I'd assisted heart attack victims. I'd dealt with child death. I'd got my ass beat when I was dealing with shoplifters who were bigger and better and stronger than me. I'd had guys with guns come after me. Like, I'd done a lot of things in my life to make $5,000. And in this one, I made $5,000 on a house I never owned. And it was like, that it gives me goosebumps, brother, just retelling that story, because it was like, holy crap, what the heck is going on here? They did know something I didn't know. They understood transactional real estate. And I never looked back. And we went into 2008, 9, 10, and I became one of the most prevalent, what we call distressed asset investors in the state of Massachusetts. And I ended up partnering up with the government, with the Attorney General's office, and my company and the state of Massachusetts would go to court, and we would foreclose on the bank-owned properties. We'd foreclose on the bank. Like, the bank is out, we're in, I'd do the repairs, bring it back up to market value, and then the bank would have to buy the property back from me, or I could sell it in the open market. So that was my foundation, man, like single family real estate investing. It was huge.
The first deal you ever did, you obviously had to have some level of a network or an investor on the other end to buy this asset, right?
Yeah.
How did you go about building a network or finding that investor? Because that's the bit that people don't talk about. They don't talk about how did you get your first deal done.
Yeah.
Because it's either two sides, right? You either got an investor and you don't have a deal, or you have deals and you don't have investors. So how did you find your first investor?
Oh, dude, that's a great question too. So watch this. How the heck did you and I end up here? A guy from Birmingham and a guy from just outside of Boston, talking real estate. How did we end up here? What did you
Social
do?
media. Twitter. I reached
media.
out. Yeah.
So back in the day when social media wasn't as prevalent as it was, 15, 20 years ago, we used Craigslist. Now, I don't know if Craigslist is in the UK. Craigslist was like a buying and selling platform. It was early social media in the sense that,
like bargain pages. Or
Like you could post wanted ads and things like that. And the guys that I invested in for real estate training gave us scripts and formulas and formats that would work. They told me, join a real estate investing club, a RIA group, they're called, Real Estate Investment Association here in the States, which is a national club. They said, join that. I found out that 98% of the people who join those clubs are just tire kickers and looky-loos, right? But once I figured out who the 2 to 5% of the real players were, I then began to network with them. So I spent a lot of time making a lot of phone calls, making a lot of emails, because I made a commitment to myself. And here's I think is what a lot of people miss, is that value is not just money, right? It's skills, it's personality, it's communication skills, it's deal flow, it's relationships. So I can dime myself out, because this is probably going to play more in the UK than it is over here in the States. I leveraged the crap out of the fact that I was a firefighter in my municipality, because what I did was I had access to the building department. I had access to the electrical department. I had access to the planning department. I'm a firefighter in my own city, and it was a big city. We were 250,000 people on the books in Lynn, Mass, where I worked. So I'm like, hey, I'm Dave. I'm a firefighter, real estate investor. I've got connections with the city. I can help you get through your permitting processes, because you know as well as I do, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Right? Do you know that you need to take Maureen, a cup of tea, milk, 2 sugars, and a bacon buddy on a Friday morning to get through the pile of paperwork on her desk? So I really leveraged what I had that was valuable, and what I didn't have was money when I started. And a lot of people think that. So I worked social media as best as I could. I got myself in as many education events as I could. I got myself mentors. I got coaches around me. Like, I began to build my ground floor team so that I could then escalate my business to be where I am today.
So question. A lot of, I see this quite often. A lot of people are fearful or feel guilty in leveraging their network because, like, things should either be done on our own merit, or like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
weird because the relationship is previously that and it's now this. Like, how do I go about doing that? Because for me, it's different. I've networked my whole life, so it's
Right.
like it's a lot easier for me to go and network. For people who don't know how to network,
Yeah.
and they have relationships with
Yeah.
either people in their old jobs in their old life, how do you get over that?
Yeah, that's a great question as well, man. I don't know if you're writing these down or we're free flowing, but it's great.
Free flow.
Look, here's the deal, and I know that you resonate with this. Like, we just met 3 minutes before we started this call, but you're my brother from another on the other side of the world. Like, I honestly believe in, God puts people together for a reason, and here's how you get over that networking piece and networking and leveraging the relationships you have. If it's a challenge for you, it's a challenge for you. It's not a challenge for them. And what I mean by that is real simple. You're not convinced yet that what you have is of massive value. And as soon as the point comes that I believe in me, that I have faith, confidence, I've done my due diligence, I've done my homework, I know that the deal is a rock star deal. When I live in that truth for me, then I can relay it to somebody else. And it's a numbers game after that. I have an opportunity. Not, can I borrow some money? Oliver Twist said, can I have some more? Can I have some money? Right? That was Oliver Twist. It's not Oliver Twist. I have an opportunity that targets out a 3x return on the multiple over a 5-year hold. I don't know if it's for you. It could be. It's not for everybody. This is for educated, intelligent investors who understand how to hedge against the inflationary environment in which we're in right now. That sounds a little bit better than, hey, can I get a couple of $100,000 to go in my deal? Right? It's skill sets. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not an event. It is a process to be able to continually step into. And I don't want to go too seminary, brother, but stepping into your own magnificence, right? We've all got a higher purpose. And I think finding that higher purpose and then believing in it, sitting in it, working in it, developing it, that's when the networking becomes a lot more easier, because you will then work on attraction rather than promotion. Let me say that again. Attraction rather than promotion. Yeah, we all need to promote ourselves. But once you get past the promotion front door, there better be something really attractive on the other side. Otherwise, people won't move with you anyway. Does that make sense?
It's a bit like I saw something on your Twitter and it said something like, be greedy when other people are fearful.
Yeah.
And it's part of the quote. But I took that out specifically because a lot of people will call it being selfish or being salesy, and however we want to put it.
Yeah.
People that get ahead, and the people that do get ahead often feel like, oh, they're not nice, or they're too, because they're too greedy. Is there a balance that we can strike there of being maybe authentically yourself and caring about your investor, because I know you do, but ultimately seizing the opportunity as well, especially when in turbulent times like we live in right now.
Yeah, it's really interesting, right? So, you talk about a balance. I'm going to push back on you, brother. There is no balance. I have one offering. It comes in different shapes and sizes, but I only have one offering, which is a massive opportunity to work capital with velocity. That's my offering. Now, how do I get that message to as many people who need it? People who need it. It's not what I want. Doesn't matter what I want. I'm going to be great no matter what. What do they want? How can I service them? There's a Zig Ziglar quote, and Zig Ziglar says, if you want to figure out, and I'll paraphrase, if you want to figure out everything that you want in life, figure out how to give as many people what they want in life, right? So if I can service 1 million people and charge them $1 each or £1 each, then I'm a millionaire, right? A million people have something that I can service them with for £1. I got £1 million. Now, when I got £1 million, I can leverage that into a £3 million worth of real estate transactions, right? Buy right, push up the AUM, keep the process going, and consistently bring people with you. Look, I believe that there has to be a band leader. I believe there has to be an element of self-promotion. But here's the trick, and I don't mean the word trick being a tricky or negative. The trick or the secret sauce, if you will, is that when I win as a company, my investors celebrate, right? My investors celebrate. It's not a case of, you know who points fingers and complains? Are the people who didn't invest with me, right? The people who complain the most are the people who put in the least amount of money. The people who complain the most are some of my peers from the firehouse, right? When I started in real estate, my mates in the firehouse were like, who do you think you are? What do you mean? What are you going to be, the next Donald Trump, Seymour? You're a fireman. You're a bulldog. You're a builder. You're not an investor. You ain't that smart, right? And then I'm on a national TV show, and they got to sit in the firehouse and watch episodes of me flipping houses. And you know what they said? Seymour, we always knew he was lucky. You know what I'm saying? So it's bring value. I was sitting with an investor a couple of weeks ago. We got a deal on deck right now. We're doing a $5 million raise. And I sat with Jack. He's invested in another deal with me, an office building we're doing in Fort Myers. And I'm sitting with Jack. And he looked at me and he said to me, he goes, Dave, at the end of the day, I understand 85-90% of the commercial real estate world, you know, as you lay it out to me. He said, but to be brutally honest with you, and this is a businessman, he runs a business, successful guy, he's owned his business for 30 years, he does embroidery and, you know, like shirt screening and stuff like that, right? But he has big government contracts. And he said to me, at the end of the day, I give you $300,000 because I trust you. I trust that you're going to put that capital in that real estate deal that we discussed. I trust that you're going to build it or you're going to reposition it. You're going to do whatever you're going to do with the multifamily assets that you buy or office assets that you buy. He said, so I'm betting on you, the jockey, first, and then I bet on the horse afterwards. And then he looked at me and he said, this is my retirement money, so don't screw it up. You know what I mean? Like, how can you be a self-promoter without integrity? That's what upsets me. When I see the cars, boats, and leather coats, and the private jets, and the Rolls-Royce bullshit, and all that stuff, that just annoys me. That just annoys me. I drive a Ford F-150 pickup truck, same truck I was driving when I was in construction. I'm not in this business for cars, boats, and leather coats. I'm in this business to raise all boats, right? The tide rises all boats. We're in this together. So that's where it's a celebration rather than, you know, what did he do or what did she do? And it will work as long as you stay in the business long enough to get repetition and track record. You know, people will notice. People will notice. You know, does this make sense? You're with me, right?
Yeah, I 100% agree with it. Where did the philosophy of celebrating with your investors come from? Like, you know, again, you come from a very bulldog sort of environment. Like, you know, you go in there, you go in there, destroy shit, make things happen, right?
Yeah.
How did you go from having that to having a sense of purpose? Like, when did you start caring about people? It's probably a better...
That's a great question too. I've always cared. You know, on a real personal level, I've kind of always been, you'd have to ask the people around me, but if I say it, I'm an egotistical asshole, but if somebody else says it, you know, it's okay. But the people around me they kind of describe me as like a knight in shining armor. Like, you know, I've always put other people's goals ahead of my own. And let me clarify that a little bit. I have one responsibility in my business, and it's always been that way, is to put my investors first, right? I have a fiduciary responsibility to put their capital to work in as risk-free of an environment as we agree and discuss upon, and then work that capital, because they're relying on what I do for their children's college education fund, for their retirement funds, for, you know, it's discretionary capital. It's not the money that they need to live on every day. And I always, you know, you ask me, when did I care? I've always cared. But what happened is at the level of real estate that you and I participate in, we can care for more people than just our own family, right? The 4 people under our roof or the 5 people under our roof. Take care of home. Like, my wife is the rock that I get to stand on so I can look cool today. You know what I mean? My wife and my kids, that's the king in the castle stuff. Now when I come out, let's go over the drawbridge, get over the moat. What's going on around here? Well, we got retirement planning in America, which is horseshit. It's terrible. It's predatory. And we don't have enough time to break all of that down. But when you start looking at what the average American has had as a retirement offering, like the government retirement program over here is defunct. It's upside down. It's bollocks. It ain't ever gonna be what it needs to be for a generation to retire.
It's a bit like the UK. Like, you know, you retire on a pension.
Yeah.
After working, you know, 50 odd years or 30, 40 years, you retire on this. If you're a civil servant, you get, you know, looked after a little bit more with better pension schemes. But it's all about how much you have to then contribute to your pension. Right. You're still contributing a part of your salary and a part of your that time trade into your retirement. So I couldn't agree more with that.
Look, I remember my dad. So my dad's 80 now. He lives down on the South Coast, down in Portland, and you know, I'm not going to give you the exact numbers, but I think I produce more in a month than he gets paid in a year for his pension. You know what I mean? And it's like, I watch my old man graft, like work hard to keep it going, you know? And, you know, that at the end of the day, you know, it's kind of like to thine own self be true, right? You got to look in the mirror. Guy said to me one time, the only time we're really brutally honest with ourselves is like 3 o'clock in the morning when we're looking in the mirror and there's nobody else around, right? Because it's just you and yourself. So when I see, especially stateside, and I don't have the experience in the UK, I'm sure it's very similar, but you know, if I have to attract an investor because I've got, you know, a $50,000 Rolex watch, like that's what they're aspiring for. It's no right or wrong, and it's not a judgment. Again, it's just me. This is my, you know, you're asking Dave Seymour about his perspective on it. You know, I look at all of those trappings, if you will, or the blingy parts of it, and I say, well, one side of it shows success, which somebody is attracted to and therefore will invest in, and I understand that. But then who is the demographic of who really invests with us as operators? My number one avatar, my client base for investing with us is 35 to 55-year-old male, married, family, a little bit of a net worth, accredited investor, we call them in the States, $200,000 a year in income, who is sick and tired of the bullshit of the stock market, where the stockbrokers are making 2 points every year on AUM, money in, money out. They're making more money on every single trade that they do. They're not trading with the investor the way we do as GPs, right? As a you know, a general partner in my deal, I put my hard-earned green in there as well, right? It together side by side, which go in full conversation encourages that celebratory win, if you will, with the investors and the GPs on the deal. So, you know, it's people love commonality. They love connection. And I don't have to be anything other than I am to be able to raise $5 million, $2 million, whatever deal structure we got going on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the conversation I want to move on to next. And I've seen you talk about other people's money, and I've seen you even teach people and do these strategy sessions with people about other people's money. I'm in a private equity academy. We've helped over 100 developers raise more capital, and you yourself are in that position as well.
Yeah.
Talk to us about how you kind of grow that or scale raising capital. Like it's not like you do your one-off deal and that's fine. You're able to do that, right? How do you now take that raising capital element and now scale this to something larger where you're raising 50 million, 100 million one go, or you're doing these bigger deals?
Yeah. So for me, right, it kind of goes all the way back to the firefighter conversation. What did I have that was valuable as a fireman? I looked at my skill sets and how I could service somebody else. So how do you scale that in capital raising? There's the high net worth individuals. There's, your accredited investors. That's one level of capital. The next level of capital above that is quasi-institutional capital. So now we're starting to talk to family offices. When you talk to a family office, and there's a lot of them in the UK, by the way, when you're talking to a family office, it's very important to understand that that's generational wealth. And that family office wealth has been created through smart decisions. So don't ever put yourself in a position where you're trying to pitch a skinny deal to a family office or a quasi-institutional office, because they will rip your underwriting apart in a heartbeat, right? And I've seen it with other deals that guys have tried to pitch. So understanding the levels of capital from accredited investors, business owners, in the States, lawyers, doctors, chiropractors, dentists, right? The high earning jobs, if you will. Good social media presence is always good. Understanding how social media at the retail level it's a sharp sword when you know how to use it. Like, you can really cut through the crap and get right down to who it is you want your message to be in front of. I have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. I consider it thrown out the window in social media advertising without it being productive, right? There's a million social media I guarantee you're going to be number one here. I guarantee you this many leads. I've got a sales floor that converts at 90%. It's all bullshit, right? It really is. Until you can bring that skill set in-house and somebody really understands the internet footprint of your avatar so that you're in front of the right person, that's when things happen. We're about to launch a national campaign in the States. We're going to be airing, I think it's 2-3 weeks out, where I partnered with one of the best publishing and social media companies. But the magic word in there is partner. I didn't outsource them. They're going to be a member. They're going to be a GP in our fund. So we'll create a fund, 50 million, 100 million. They will do the marketing on their dime, not mine. But now they get to participate in the economics. Everybody's going, yay, we're doing great together, rather than third-party servicing all the time. So that's one thing that's key, is learning how to partner with the right people. And then when you elevate up to, your family office is quasi-institutional, and then right now I'm in the process of inking a deal with a VC company, because American real estate right now is probably the number one investment in the world. And I say that with respect to everybody and everywhere else, including the UK. We've created an opportunity here where the need for rental assets, the supply-demand imbalance is it's an anomaly. Like, we've never seen the imbalance like this before in the Florida market. Everybody moved from the northeast of America down to Florida during COVID. Florida is it's a blue state, so we're super friendly to businesses in Florida. So you got all of these things going on. So now I've got a venture capitalist company that's bringing in money from the Middle East and a Hong Kong group, and these guys want to write checks for 100 million, 250 million. They want to see what our pipeline looks like so that they can start deploying capital, because the Middle Eastern capital, as you probably know, cannot earn interest due to faith, but it can. There are other ways around it, right? There are other ways that capital can work, and they're super excited about what we're doing. So, maybe $1 billion. Who knows, man? I like when I start talking about those numbers. It's like I look over my shoulder to see who the hell's saying this. You know what I mean? That's Dave from Shannon Court, the council estate. But it's a process. Again, it takes time to attract that money.
Would you say your success in capital raising is down to your social media presence, or is it down to hiring because the difficulty here, especially for the firm that I'm building, is finding people who can do the capital raising, even 50% of what I can do here.
Yeah.
Now, how do you replace yourself in this scenario? Is it purely a brand thing, or do you have a hiring strategy that other people haven't thought about?
Yeah, so we keep it very lean. I've got an executive team of 4 guys. I just brought in another guy, and then we work our way down from there. So if you use it as a pyramid scale. So everybody on the executive team is authorized to raise capital at any time, anywhere. So as a group, we're always in some kind of network environment, business environment, where we can have those conversations. So empowering all team members to be able to raise capital, I think, is very important. From there, we can hire a sales floor, which is what we're going to do after this next marketing campaign. But we have SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission compliance. I think you have the same thing in the UK.
SEC compliance in the UK, yeah.
Yeah, so you've got compliance in the UK, and that's critical. So your sales team needs to understand what its compliance parameters are, because nobody wants to be wearing an orange jumpsuit, right, and standing in front of the guy going, I don't know, right? It's always great when everything's good, but as soon as something goes wrong, then it's not good, right? So having that sales team and a training process for that sales team. So we're building out that sales funnel again. We've used it in the past. We're building it out again on this end. So we're able to maximize every lead that comes in off of a campaign. Understand that out of 100 hands that are raised, 2-3 of them are going to actually deploy capital. The other 98 needs to go into a good, we do it on volume as well. You got to understand that, right? Like I got a volume group. So that other 98%, they go into they're in a nice warm-up cycle. They're consistently, going through educational drip campaigns with email. They're consistently going through, they see all the offerings so that they see that we're always active. And then you begin to test and measure those marketing funnels. Okay, so the first 2 to 5% was a knockdown, easy. 6 months later from that original campaign, we might have taken down another 10, 15%. And then after that, it's just word of mouth. You never know if that 99th person that was unable to contribute stays engaged, right? Becomes a raving fan, as we call them, stays engaged. And then they meet somebody else somewhere else who has capital that's looking for an opportunity. They say, hey, you should go see Dave Seymour and those guys over at Freedom Venture Investments. They're kicking ass and taking names. And then they become engaged. So you never know. It's hard to track where they come from. But consistency, authenticity are critical to that piece of the flow. So that's how we've been able to expand.
How about if you're starting off? You don't have a funnel. You don't have a database. You don't have a brand. What would you do from a prospecting angle to find investors who are willing to invest in your projects?
So look, the flow of information has always been first is family and friends, right? If you talk to what's his name, Lieberman there from Blackstone, Lieberman I think his name is. If you read his book, I can't remember the name.
Schwartzman, Stephen Schwartzman.
Schwartzman. Right. So his book of how he built Blackstone, those guys are like 28 billion or something AUM, if not even more, like a ridiculous number. but he started in his Jewish man of Jewish faith, started in his Jewish community, family and friends. His mom and dad owned a cloth shop, right, embroidery shop and stuff, in the Jewish neighborhood in New York, and he started, and he asked family and friends. But that's your first stop. But here's the thing, and most people forget this. Just because you've got a network of family and friends, right, zero perspectives, doesn't mean they're going to give you money, you numbnuts. You got to know what the hell you're talking about, which is why you go to Abdul's classes. You go to Abdul's University of Real Estate. You go there, you sign up, you get educated. I mean, my first 2 years, I'm on webinar after webinar after webinar, absorbing as much as I possibly could so that I was competent when I had money conversations.
But here's the thing: is there such a thing of, because it's very easy to get trapped in this cycle of shiny penny syndrome or becoming a sports junkie. Like, in what order would you educate yourself? Do you educate yourself? Because I've always believed that you gotta find the capital before you find the deal. Mm-hmm. That's just my. I'm
the opposite. That's so great. Me and my ex-partner were exactly that way. I said, find the deal and the money will come. And he's like, well, what if it doesn't? I go, then it wasn't a good deal. It wasn't a good deal, right? It's part of our upbringing. It's part of our experience and our background, right? I didn't have a financially conservative background to rely upon the fact that, well, you got to have the money if you're going to make the offer. I'm a gunslinger, brother. I'm like, let's go find deals. They said the money will come, right? So there's no right or wrong. It's not right or wrong. It's DNA. Yeah. What's the ultimate goal? Get the deal done. Get the deal done. Yeah. If I have a deal, and it is because a good deal only lasts 24 hours, this stuff that kicks around on the internet for months on end, it's garbage. That's why it's been kicking around on the internet. A good deal, 1 day, 24 hours max.
Yeah,
right? And then the money will find it. The money will find it. But look, watch. You just told me you like to find the money before the deal. I told you I like to find the deal before the money. I think you and I just fell in love, right? You see how it works? Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
we just built something in a podcast. Maybe it comes to fruition, maybe it doesn't, but we understand each other already. And that's the same for the new person. If your DNA is from a more conservative background, which a lot of the UK DNA and thought processes are, find a guy like me. Because when you find the money, I promise you, I got plenty of deal flow. I just told you, I got 300 million in the pipe right now, right? So that match, I think, is what's great about real estate. Here's how I term it. Tell me if you resonate with this. I think you will. Okay. My moment, my epiphany, if you will, was when I realized that real estate investing is not about competition. It's about collaboration. When I really let that sink into my squash, my gray matter, magic happened. It's a collaborative environment. Yes, there's a lot of people chasing deals and chasing money. I get that. I'm not stupid. But what I am is intentful when I have a conversation. Like, I've learned to be a little bit of a linguistic master, right? If you listen to the way I talk, it's kind of like second nature now, but I learned it. When I say to you, does that make sense? I think you're going to resonate with this. I'm just like you. I, like you, want to do X, Y, Z. Like, I've learned the mechanics of communication and framework in talking, because at the end of the day, I can help whoever I talk to if they want the help. Now, when I make a statement like that, it creates immediate posture on my side of the equation. I don't need anybody's help. I give help. You understand what I'm saying? So that collaborative approach, it knits, Abdul. It knits together, brother. It's like there becomes a level of confidence, right? Everybody wants to be confident.
How do you avoid the time wasters then? in that if we're out looking for collaborations and partnerships,
Yeah, to
how do
get
we? Because there's a lot of time wasters out there, in my
yeah,
opinion. So
yeah.
it's like,
It takes a lot. It takes
how do you cut
a
people off?
it takes a lot to get to me. So as you know, so let's do this. Watch. We'll use you as an example if we could, right?
Okay, go.
You reach out on Twitter.
Yep.
You immediately have done some research on me. What do? I immediately do some research on you. I can see, kind of where you've been and what you've been doing. You're in the Asian community. That's a good community for capital. Like, my head's working. My head's working.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there is a need for UK capital to go to work with high potential. So all of those things are going on, right? So I then make a decision. Am I going to do a podcast with this guy, or is he going to be a time waster? I very easily can determine what value I can bring you first, and then is there reciprocity and an opportunity for collaboration? And I believe the answer to that is yes. So I don't need to send you to my assistant and walk through the questions that she has. I don't need to do all those things. You went to the top of the list based on the research I did on you and your firm first. That's not ego. That's just good business. So it takes a lot to get to me, the CEO of the company. That being said, everybody gets a shot. Everybody gets a crack at it, right? Everybody just wants to be able to participate at some level or another. So that's how I avoid it. There are gatekeepers, if you will, along the way. The other thing that's an advantage for me is if I want to get through somebody's gate, I'm blessed in the sense that I just pull the reality TV card. There's still some value in that, right? Hey, it's Dave from Flippin Boston, A&E Network, 4 seasons, reaching out to your team for XYZ. Like I've got that credibility card that I can pull. So I'm very conscious of not wasting somebody else's time, but I'm also very conscious of my time not being wasted, because as we know, it's the number one commodity, right? That's the most important commodity there is our time.
You share the stage with Tony Robbins and Pitbull. Talk to me about that, because I'm very interested in how you built your personal brand. Because one, you got yourself into a TV show. Mm-hmm. Not many people would do that because it takes 6 months of filming. You got to take that time out of business. You gotta have the flexibility to do that. And then you're on stage speaking. Like, are you going out there looking for these opportunities, or these opportunities coming to you? Because there's a big difference between the two.
Yeah. I mean, I'm conscious of our time. I could talk to you all day, brother, right? But I went to that first seminar, right? The real estate class, Russ Whitney. And I was broke as a joke. I was hurting. And I spent the last $27,000 available to us on my wife's credit cards for the classes. And I always say she was my first private lender, right? Was my wife. But what that did was it put me in an environment I had never experienced before, which was the seminar education space. And long story short, once you get into one of those funnels, you said it earlier, shiny things are coming from everywhere, right? And I went to as much as I could because I didn't know what I didn't know. And there was a firefighter from California who was selling websites. $5,000. What a ripoff. $5,000 for these websites, right? A buyer's website, a seller's website, and a money-raising website, which I know today was totally illegal because it wasn't SEC compliant. But anyway, I gave this guy $5,000 that we had access to. And his presentation on stage was pretty rank. It wasn't good. Like, he wasn't funny. Mm-hmm. He thought he was. It's really not about education in a quick hour and a half. It's about infotaining, right? Can you entertain an audience? Can you build some credibility? Can you build some desire? And if you can, you have an opportunity for a sale, and then you help that student as they go through the funnel system. So anyway, I called this guy on his crappy presentation. And he said to me, "Who are you?" I said, I'm Dave. He said, what didn't you like? I said, well, your comedy's a little rough, mate. I said, you're laughing at your own punchline before you even give it. You've got to let us enjoy the joke, blah, blah, blah. And he says to me, how do you know this stuff? I said, well, I did a little stand-up comedy in the pubs and clubs in London. I did a little bit of stuff, He says to me, you're my new comedy coach. That's what he said to me, right? So I took the opportunity to slap the guru up the side of the head, grab his attention. He, in return, offers me a job to be his comedy coach. He says, I'll fly you down to Orlando, Florida. This is God's honest truth, mate. I'll fly you down to Orlando, Florida, and I'll pay you $1,000 for 3 days or whatever it was. So 750 quid for 3 days to be a comedy coach. I'm like, I'm waiting for the candid camera moment. You know what I mean? Like somebody's going to tap me on the shoulder and go, psych, joke. But he let me in. And when he let me in and I got on the inside, I was hanging out with guys that were in mastermind groups. Gary Vaynerchuk, the guy who does clickbait. What the hell was his name? Russell Brunson. A lot of these internet guys, a lot of real estate guys, commercial, wholesale. Like I'm in with the freaking gurus, dude. And I'm sitting at the table with these guys and I'm listening to their stories, and the 5 people that influence me the most change. Long story short, guy says to me, I can't get to this event. It was a multi-speaker event. He says, you've seen me present a number of times. He goes, here's my PowerPoint on a thumb drive. He said, go present on my behalf. He said, I'll give you 25% of whatever you sell. I'm like, I've never done this before. He said, you've watched this so many times. Just do it. So I'm selling, it was a private money course, Abdul, right? A private money course. And there were like 80 people left in the room. The last group on Sunday, I go up there. I've been emceeing the event. And yeah, I passed the audition. I closed 25% of the room, and I made $4,000, so 3,500 quid, 3,000 quid in an hour and a half. And I'm like, I like this line of work too. And it progressed from there. And then they found out that Dave could work a crowd. Dave could work a room. And I got in with the guys who were doing the Tony Robbins and Pitbull events, and I was the MC up in Montreal. You knew you were in Canada when Pitbull was playing and the Canadians weren't dancing. They're like, just like this, like we got no rhythm. You know what I mean? My wife's shaking her booty around, having a good time. And I'm looking around, I'm like, yeah, we're in Canada. There's no emotion up here. These people are cold all the time. But yeah, that's how it got to be that way. I love that part of the work. Love it.
You know what? I've really enjoyed this. This has been insightful. This has been inspiring. This has been motivating in many ways. I appreciate your time. I'm gonna ask you one question, and I got this from someone else's podcast, but I try and do this to people just to throw them off a little bit, or also kind of like ask something that's totally different. There's 2 things actually. First thing is, what is one thing that nobody knows about you, apart from your wife, of course?
I'm a Lego freak. I like to build high-end Lego sets. I'll spend as much as $4 or $5 grand on a Lego set. Titanic. Wow. Yeah, if I grab my little camera right now, I'll show you my. I got my. Where are they? They're up there somewhere, I think. No, it's the wrong way. That way. There's my London Bridge Lego set. There's my Big Ben Lego set. There's my my Volkswagens, my cars. Yeah, I'm a little bit of a freak with the Lego, and I figured that out. It's actually entrepreneurial. The reason that the Legos are good for me is because I can get production, right? As real estate people and entrepreneurs, we love production. If I can't find production in the course of a day, I always know that I can finish a Lego set and it'll be all good. Kind of freaky, but there you go. That's one thing.
I like that.
Yeah.
My nephew will love that one, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I do the same.
Yeah, I got the streets and everything. They do like a street. I got like 18 feet of Lego street hanging on you. I'm freaky. Wow. What do you want from me? It's better than getting whatever. Yeah.
And the last one is, say you've achieved everything that you want to achieve in your lifetime, and you're on your deathbed. You've got a tissue paper or something, a little piece of paper, and someone hands you a pen, and they ask you to write down 3 truths that you think people should live by. What are those 3 truths for you?
Don't die with regret is number one, right? Don't die with regret. Fight to be present. My kids have seen me up, down. You know what I mean? Be present. Be present with the people that you love. Find time for them, and that's not easy for us as entrepreneurs because we're always working in our brain, even when we're doing anything. So no regrets. Be present. Find your own truth. I think the third thing would be, and it kind of ties into both of them, is really, and it sounds seminary, but it's so true, is to take action, right? To really, to do it. Don't just talk about it. Don't just learn it. Freaking do it, right? Get in the game, whatever that game may be. And I find that if I can stick to that course of action, then things happen for me that are positive. So no regrets, be present, and then act upon it. And if I can add one more, I'm going to add one more thing, and then I'll leave it alone. My board back in my office, I'm at home today, as you can see, but the board back in my office is $300 million worth of real estate transactions in the pipeline, right? And right above it, it says, replace my fear with faith, right? Because it can be pretty scary what we do at times, right? So replace my fear with faith, then act. So then get into action. However, in like a disclaimer for me, because I know me, it says, are my actions in line with my intentions? And what that means is, Dave, don't just do busy work. Understand the 80-20 rule and focus on that 20%. Like a ninja, just crush that 20%. Because again, when I win, my investors win. So it's kind of my mojo, baby.
Well, that's a lovely note to finish on. Thank you, Dave. It's been a pleasure to have you on our podcast, and I look forward to continuing our conversations. And maybe one day fly out to see you as well. But yeah, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thanks, brother.
Thank you guys for listening to the Private Equity Podcast. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to it. Feel free to follow Dave Seymour on all his social media channels. He's the only one with the blue tick on Twitter, so check him out there. And yeah, there's some real golden nuggets that I'm going to break down on my social media channels over the course of the next few weeks, which I really want to tap into, and hopefully everyone found this valuable. Thanks, guys. See you soon. Bye bye.